Welcome to a football show. NFL Draft Week is here. That is Paul Kuharsky. I am Braden Gall. We are brought to you by Sinkers Beverages. We have a lot to discuss today, even more newsy than we expected, with some news potentially breaking about the Super Bowl in 2030, a huge trade with the Giants in the top 10 that affects the Titans in like a number of different various ways. Lots of stuff to get to, of course, today. We'll have final predictions on what happens in the first round. And, of course, a preview of what's coming up this week. So much to do. Brought to you by Sinkers Beverages. Our Thursday night draft party is sold out. Sorry if you missed out, but really excited to have a great night on Thursday night. Saturday night, Paul will be there with a panel of experts to take all of your questions privately. Tickets still available for that event. Tell you more about that coming up. PK, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. I am well.
There you go. I'm ready to get the draft going, man. I'm excited about this. So. Anyone else, Retro Docs, anyone else hoping Ty Simpson goes ahead of us so we get Reese or Bailey? I got something to say about that coming up momentarily. So we're going to do a lot of stuff today. We're going to cover the Super Bowl here quickly on the front end, kind of reiterate all the reasons why I believe that this is coming to our city in 2030, February of 2030. We'll get into that. I think there's lots of angles around this Dexter Lawrence trade to the from the Giants to the Bengals that apply to the Tennessee Titans, not only this year's draft, but also the value of first-round picks, the top 10, and also what is Jeffery Simmons worth, both on the trade market, but also from a contract standpoint as Dexter Lawrence goes from New York to Cincinnati and signs an extension. So lots of stuff to get together, lots of stuff to discuss today on the show. Again, incrowd@sinkersbeverages.com is the email address if you would like to RSVP for Saturday evening. Thursday night, sold out, going to be a ton of fun at ML Rose in East Nashville. Stillman's broadcasting live for the entirety of the draft with another couple cool people that I know that I'm excited to have with us that night. And then Saturday night, you got Paul, you got me, you got Cavendish, you got Nick Suss, some other special guests. We're going to do a private Q&A off the record discussion with all of the draft picks already known at that time, of course, Saturday evening, 7 o'clock. Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, of course, is the location. All you can eat, all you can drink. We're going to have autographed merch from the Titans. We're going to have new logoed gear. We got a gift bag for everybody who comes, and we're going to have a bourbon tasting as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And, Paul, I appreciate your support in this event and all of you out there for making this a really cool charity event. It is our biggest and best year ever. From a fundraising standpoint, we've already made more money this year to give to the kids of Middle Tennessee. Our Kids Foundation is the website. Every penny goes to them. Sinkers doesn't make a penny. Shotgun Willie's, ML Rose, me, you, none of us make a penny. Every dollar goes to help children in Middle Tennessee at Our Kids Foundation. So very proud of all of you out there. Very excited. If you want a spot on Saturday night, there are plenty available. In crowd at sinkersbeverages.com. Tickets are only $75 and every penny goes to the kids. All right. Let's start quickly with the Super Bowl. This was, I guess, Dan Patrick reported this, I guess, this morning on his show or today on his show. I don't know what time his show is on anymore, but he reported that a source from the NFL told him on Saturday that it is a done deal, that it has been decided on, that Nashville is going to get the Super Bowl in 2030. If you back up, there's a lot of reasons that 2030 has been the date that we have said on this show for the better part of, I would say, 8 or 9 months. TPAC is supposed to be finished. If you saw the renderings last week, it is supposed to be finished just before the end of the 2029 calendar year. For those that don't know about how construction works, you have to have a 4-month pause, roughly speaking, before and after the Super Bowl to get it ready, get the grounds and the area ready. You cannot have giant construction buildings and projects halfway finished all around the Super Bowl for TV and for billionaires and for fans and for everybody that's going to be there. It's got to be put together. It's got to be nice. It's got to be presentable to the world. Too important, too much money. And so there's a break in the action on the East Bank in terms of development that will take place probably right around that period of time. That is the logic behind all of this. We reached out to the mayor's office, and the mayor's office has said on the record that, according to Alex Apple, the mayor's spokesperson, that the city of Nashville has not been in contact with the NFL regarding any dates. So they are not confirming this at all. But Dan Patrick has some pretty high sources in the NFL, PK. So this is how it would start, right? It's very rare that somebody breaks this news. It's very rare that someone breaks the location of a Super Bowl. A lot of times it comes out just before, or it comes from the team or the league.
Well, I mean, at the owners' meetings a couple of weeks ago in Arizona, it was kind of a foregone conclusion that Nashville was getting it when Las Vegas got the game that will be played in 2029. They're second in 5 years. So Nashville was logically the next stop. And it seems like the league is really fired up about the new venues, with being Allegiant, SoFi, now Nissan Stadium, particularly if it does well, could get in that 5-year-ish cycle, though that could slow down if places like Washington will definitely get one. Chicago could get a one-off. Kansas City, I don't know if they've got the infrastructure for it, could get a one-off. A lot of new stadiums coming online. But I think also there's a real signal to places like New Orleans, like Miami, like Tampa Bay for sure. They got to do significant upgrading to keep up with the Joneses in terms of the amenities that these new places are going to have. They might be smaller. Allegiant is smaller. Nissan Stadium will be the small list. It can get up to probably 65-ish for a Super Bowl game, but they want the big time amenities more than they want the big time seating. And all Nashville needs is to really do well with the first one in order to probably get in the rotation.
I think they get in the rotation. The question is when, because if there's another, like the East Bank development is a 30-year thing. It's decades of development and building. So that initial 30 acres that's around the stadium, which is called the IDA, the question is how fast do they get some of those buildings online, whether it's hotels or affordable housing or the actual transit boulevard or the East Bank Boulevard that's going to run right there in front of the stadium. It's how long does that take? So is it 8 years to get all that built, and then that's when they can come back and host one when it's all finished? That's going to be sort of the interesting angle to all of this, is when I'm with you. I think they will get into rotation. I think it's going to be longer between 1 and 2 than people realize, I think, would be my guess. But that's just my guess. We'll call this all informed speculation. But that was an interesting piece of news that I got this morning from the Dan Patrick Show, saying it's signed and delivered, that it's a done deal, that the Super Bowl is coming to Nashville. If it is broken, PK, to your point, ahead of time, it happens real fast. Right, it's broken, and then they announce it. So we shall see. But very rarely.
I don't think they'll announce it. I mean, I don't think they'll announce it until at least another owners meeting, which there might be one in December. There's one in March.
Okay,
those kind of things.
Okay. All right. Well, that's the quick update there on the front end as it pertains to the Super Bowl. Just thought we'd cover that quickly and then kind of move on to the rest of this stuff. We'll talk a lot about the draft. A lot of you guys in the comments talking about the Jeremiah Love to Arizona rumors, which of course started this morning, I believe, from Adam Schefter, saying that the Arizona Cardinals are very interested in Jeremiah Love. Is that posturing? Is that smokescreen? Are the Titans distancing themselves from Jeremiah Love on purpose? Who knows? We'll get your predictions on what happens coming up here in just a little while. But let's get into Dexter Lawrence here.
Well, the Titans distancing themselves from Jeremiah Love wouldn't really serve any purpose. I mean, outside of, if they're putting out that the Cardinals are going to take him and then the Cardinals don't take him and he's still on the board when the Titans pick, what purpose will they have served?
So I have a theory on all that, and I don't disagree with your point. We will get to our predictions on what happens in just a little bit. I want to cover Dexter Lawrence first.
Yep.
And that is that the New York Giants send their star defensive tackle in the middle of his second contract. I would say I would probably rank him at or slightly below Jeffery Simmons. It doesn't really matter. They're all kind of about the same. Quinnen Williams is about as good as Jeffery Simmons. They're all kind of about the same. They are among the best defensive tackles in the world right now. And in the middle of his second contract, you got the new coach, clearly a regime that is rebuilding the Giants, decides to trade him to the Cincinnati Bengals, who have their own motivation in all of this, which is to be more competitive right now to make Joe Burrow happy. They re-sign him to an extension, $28 million. So that's 3 years, $70 million now, roughly speaking, for Dexter Lawrence to play for the Bengals for the next 3 years. Good market value there, or at least valuation of the market for Titans in their contract negotiations with Jeffery Simmons. And if you're looking at the trade, they give up a 10th overall pick here. So the Bengals give up their 10th overall pick to the Giants. And there's a lot of really interesting angles to all of this. So the first one is, Paul, what does this do to the top of the draft? The Giants now sit at 5 and 10. All kinds of discussions about teams wanting to trade up and trade back and who are they getting up for. I want to know, we've got to also discuss the value of this first round pick, which seems to be greatly diminished, generally speaking. And then, of course, we got the Jeffery Simmons angle of it all, which is what does the future hold? Should they have considered trading him more? Is the contract extension coming soon, et cetera, et cetera? So first and foremost, what impact, if any, does this have on the Titans at 4 now that the Giants are sitting there at 5 and 10? Any at all, in your opinion?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the Giants are. I mean, I think that they'd like to get Love at 5, but they're going to take an offensive player and a defensive player. It sounds like here Downs heavily in play for one of them, and then maybe I don't know. I don't know what the other end of that is. Maybe Tate. We'll see. Look, they gave up a very good football player, but and they've got a very good defensive front. I mean, the best piece of that football team was the pass rushing unit, but Dexter Lawrence didn't have his best year last year, certainly not statistically. Played all 17 games, had half a sack, I think, a year after he had 9 sacks. And I think the reputation out there was that he kind of didn't put a full faith effort in. It was unhappy with the losing, was unhappy with the regime, and that a change of scenery is probably good for both sides. That leaves, I think, the Giants in need of a central defensive lineman. So we'll see if they don't have to make a move in this draft to replace him. I think they probably will. Tyson is the other. So Downs and Tyson would be the Giants' 2 targets. Sammy reminding me there.
Well, I could see Styles at 5 and then a receiver at 10, right? Whether it's Lemon or Tyson or Tate, whoever falls to them. An elite defensive player and a receiver to pair with Neighbors and Dart. That all makes sense to me.
Yeah, but I don't think it does much to what the Titans are going to do. I mean, they're behind the Titans, I've read. I mean, I think the Bengals generally got killed on the value that they gave up for them, but I think they also they got some credit from some people for finally doing something not a Bengals-like move, for making a move that will solve an issue with run defense. They were active in free agency on the edge, and this would be a move that, if he is the Dexter Lawrence that he's been, would kind of cap their defensive front, help them defend the run. But, people still think that's a little bit rich or a lot of it rich, and doesn't help Joe Burrow directly. So I can see both sides of it.
I think it is hard to argue that you are going to get a Dexter Lawrence quality of player at number 10 in this draft. And that is, I think there's a lot of reporting.
He's 28.
There's a lot of nuggets in the reporting from both the Giants' perspective and the Bengals' perspective that I find really interesting. Number one, the Bengals reportedly had 7 players in their top tier. Blue chip players, they were 7, according to them. I can get to maybe 5, maybe 6 if you include Caleb Downs. I don't know if any of the receivers are in that group. I think it's clearly Jeremiah Love, Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, Francisco Mendoza, which is all the Titans need to care about, those 4. David Bailey and Caleb Downs, I think, would be my 6. And then if you love one of the receivers, maybe no offensive linemen, no corners. So that's one interesting nugget from all of this, is that they thought we're going to get a second round or late first round talent at number 10. We've got to go get a quality all pro type of player. But that also speaks to what's happened in the draft this whole year, right? The Chiefs trade Trent McDuffie for a late first round pick. The Jets and the Colts have given up players to get a bunch of draft picks. Micah Parsons, Quinnen Williams are both players along the defensive line that the Packers and the Jets traded away. Similarly to this, teams are looking at this draft class in general and also at defensive tackle in particular. And if you need a defensive tackle, there are none really in this draft class, depending on if you think one of these edge guys moves inside.
Banks is the top one, and he's borderline first round.
And they've got concerns about the injury there. He's a very talented player, but concerns about the injury stuff. And so if your top need is a defensive tackle, that player, Jeffery Simmons, i.e., is going to be significantly more valuable than almost any of these draft picks. And what some other people are saying, again, little nuggets in this reporting, is that the defensive tackle draft class next year is actually terrible. It's really dangerous to do that.
Yeah.
But in this draft class, there's nobody like these players, which drives up the value tremendously for a player like Quinnen Williams, like Dexter Lawrence, and like Jeffery Simmons. So I don't know if the 2 picks affect the Titans. Maybe it means the Giants can get somebody. Maybe somebody else trades up ahead of the Giants. I don't know what that means. But I do think that the value of these first-round picks are less than they have been in the past, and the NFL is showing us that very clearly.
I think the other thing, a lot of people in the comments here calling him a nose tackle. He's a nose tackle, but it's not like he's only a nose tackle, right? You're going to find a way for Dexter Lawrence to be on the field. He's going to be a part of your defensive front, and I think you can play him as a defensive tag. I mean, he's got versatility up there to be a problem. He's not like Tavondre Sweat in that he's more limited in terms of what he can do up there, or his body type dictates that he's really a one-trick pony. Dexter Lawrence more versatile than that up front, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. And again, Sammy says, I don't know how number 10 for a nose tackle, even one as good as Dexter, is worth it. Let's think about Simmons for a second. Let's just take this back to the Titans and say Jeffery Simmons. Think about your team right now. Would you rather have Jeffery Simmons or Mansour Delane? Would you rather have Jeffery Simmons or Carnell Tate? Would you rather have Jeffery Simmons or Francis Moanoa? Would you rather have pick anybody between 10 and 15 and say, if you're the Bengals, you're in more of a win now mode. You're in more of a we need to be better right now. The Giants are looking at this going, we can build for a few years here with the new coach. I just think there's no player in this draft, with the exception, I guess, of maybe Mendoza, that is going to be better than Jeffery Simmons. Like, Jeffery Simmons is a better football player and worth every one of these draft picks, in my opinion.
Sammy says he's not likely to play even 66% of the snaps. If those are the right 66% of the snaps, if he's not playing 3 downs, if he's playing the right 2/3 of the downs, he's still super impactful guy. I tend to lean on the side of that. I want a guy that's going to play more, but
sure.
And I don't know exactly what Cincinnati's doing up front, but Jeffery Simmons' snaps are going to be down this year too. And that doesn't make Jeffery Simmons less valuable to me. Really.
That's right. So here's the other thing. Like, I was thinking through the Jalen Waddle trade, also a first round pick, right? A first round pick that the Broncos gave up. Same exact calculus. They said, we looked at the players we could draft at 30 or 31. We looked at all these names and we thought these are good players, but Jalen Waddle's going to be better for us. So we went and got Jalen Waddle. That's absolutely what why am I drawing a blank on who traded for Trent McDuffie?
Los Angeles.
The Rams, right? So, like, they did the same exact thing. They looked at a starting corner and said, that's going to be more valuable than anything we're going to get in the late 20s, excuse me. And so I just think the calculus is a little bit different with this particular draft, and at that position where they are pretty rare. There's just not a lot of guys like Simmons or Lawrence that can, on even 70% of the snaps or 75% of the snaps, which I think it means I actually undervalued Jeffery Simmons on the trade market, I think, through all of this, because the NFL is showing you that starting players at premium positions are worth at least a first-round pick, if not more. Quinnen Williams was a first and a second. Micah Parsons was 2 firsts. It's clear that these starting pieces at these premium positions are worth more than even I thought they were, including Simmons.
Yeah, I probably underrated Simmons, given that I thought Simmons was a first and a third. But I think I was talking Simmons trade value also probably before he had this fantastic year that he had, not after.
So what Sammy is saying here is that you just think Jeffery Simmons is that much better than Dexter Lawrence, because you said Sammy's saying he'd be upset if you traded the 10th pick for Dexter Lawrence, but you're saying if the Titans traded Simmons for 10 straight up, you'd feel like we got robbed, and that's a top 10 pick in the draft, not number 29.
Right.
Top 10. I would like to see
this draft. I think.
That's right.
In some other drafts, 10 feels a lot better than it feels in this draft. But yeah, Jeffery Simmons is definitely worth more than the 10th pick in the draft.
He's worth more than Dexter Lawrence, in my opinion,
Yeah.
who I believe
I don't think they did well enough for Dexter Lawrence.
But the Giants didn't.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think that's fair. That's why I think it's a good
no,
trade for
hold
the
on.
Bengals.
I don't know. I'm torn a little bit on the value of Dexter Lawrence.
Okay. So the other value of this is the contract. And remember, Titans can get out of the Simmons contract. There's 2 more years. I think it's 28 and 26 million on the cap in each of the next 2 seasons. We assume there have been negotiations or some semblance of we're going to be negotiating at some point in the future. He signs a 1-year, $28 million extension, so that adds an extra year. So now he's 3 years, $70 million. Is that about what you can expect? I think that's the number 2 highest paid tackle. Is that about what you can expect for a Jeffery Simmons extension?
Well, I think Simmons would be more. I mean, the Simmons guy can say he's better than Lawrence and should get more than Lawrence. And I think they will get more than Lawrence. And I think those conversations will go on. I think the Titans are buying goodwill on 2 fronts here with Simmons and with Skoronski, in that neither of them want to appear disgruntled. It's a new regime and you got to be around early. I know Simmons was there early, didn't see him in this big video that they just did. Skoronski was in they had a card pack break and he was in that video. I think Skoronski's far too nice of a guy to go the hold in, whatever route. I don't think Simmons will do it this year, but I think there'd be a lot of pressure. I mean, he's worthy of a new deal, and Skoronski certainly, getting his 5th-year option is worthy, and they'd be wise to get those things out of the way.
So there's interesting comment here about, and this is just, I find this interesting from Swedish Dance Party. Says, why would the Bengals let, this is, do you mean Hendrickson, Trey Hendrickson? Is that what you're saying? I've been told edge is the most important piece, and paying Dexter to play with by trading a first round seems way worse. So Trey Hendrickson is 3 years older, just for the record, 3.5 years older, 31.5 years old. He's just signed a 4-year, $112 million contract. That's not the same thing as paying Dexter Lawrence $3 million, $70 million, 3 years for $70 million to get to 31 years old when they let Trey Hendrickson walk. No, there's a major difference there.
Also, nowhere in here are we suggesting that Cincinnati makes good decisions across the board. This is an alarmingly aggressive move by the Bengals, who usually would not go anywhere near something like this. The column I read at The Athletic was, hey, this is say what you will about the deal, like it or not, this is very un-Bengals like. This is a very go for it Bengals move. Yeah. And they've made moves at edge to try to replace Hendrickson with some younger guys who also they paid money, just not Hendrickson level money. But
I don't understand. Like, they signed and they've done the other things on the other side of the ball, right? Like, they've signed both Chase and Higgins to extensions, to new contracts. I feel like you've done what you're supposed to do to make Joe Burrow happy. But you're not hearing these rumors about Josh Allen. You don't hear these rumors about Patrick Mahomes, but you do hear these rumors about Joe Burrow. So is this the Cincinnati Bengals being desperate here?
Well,
they
know they've got a window here, by the way. I mean, Pittsburgh is in a big transition year with quarterback uncertainty. And if their guy is back, he's really old. Baltimore has been underachieving and has a new coach. You don't know exactly what's going on there. And the Browns are also in transition and could be playing Deshaun Watson at quarterback. I mean, that's as unstable as that division has been in quite some time, where 2 organizations have consistently, the Steelers and the Ravens, been playoff caliber teams. And right now, you have no idea really what you're going to get from either of them. If they could Cincinnati could put together a healthy Joe Burrow year and play well out of the gate for once,
and be more consistent on defense.
Yeah, right? They could have a real chance at doing something. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to pick them because I keep falling for that nonsense. But,
Is there
who
so
knows?
let's get back to the Simmons part of this angle, which is my first thought was like, oh my God, maybe they should have traded him. That was my first reaction is if you could get a first and a second for Jeffery Simmons, maybe they should have considered that more, or I should have considered that more. And then you immediately go, well, if you're not, and you're kind of hitching your wagon to Simmons because he's better than Dexter Lawrence, we all agree, and still has many good years left in the tank, however many that might be, then he's clearly worth more than $70 million over 3 years, and it is in the Chris Jones territory of 32 to 35 million per year, which again, it's just money. 3 years, 90 million. Who cares? Give it to Simmons because now you're married to him now for sure. If you could have traded him for pretty good premium in the offseason or at the deadline, and you're not doing it, you got to make sure he's on the roster and happy now for the next few seasons. So, 95 million, 100 million, 3 years. I don't think it's that crazy to rework the deal with that amount of money.
No, I mean, I think they did the right thing when they were bottoming out. I gave some consideration to it, but I do think that Jeff transformed himself leadership wise in a lot of ways. And you can't totally go with brought in culture. You have to have a couple of tent poles, and he's the biggest tent pole. Now, I think they've done well to spread things beyond him. He can't be the spokesman for the entire team, but he can be the spokesman for the defense and certainly for the defensive front. Now he's got, I don't want him to come into camp and be a performative leader the way when he showed up last year, he automatically got into it with Cam, like had to announce, here I am. But he let his play do a lot of the talking last year. And I thought was a lot better at a lot of the important things beyond playing the best he's ever played. And so I think they did the right thing. And and we'll see where he goes from here.
I agree. Keep him healthy. No, I agree, and some of that's on Cam too, right? Cam likes to mix it up. He likes to chop it up on in practice. That
but he was young enough to follow somebody's lead.
Yeah, no question.
If nobody gave him the bait, he wouldn't have had to have taken it. And Daniel Caribbean there is saying, Titans now need to pay their prime guys and show that's how it works. I don't have any doubt they're going to pay Skoronski and Simmons.
Yep, I'm with you on that one as well. All right, Sinkers Beverages, just go shop at their liquor store, but also come out on Saturday night in crowd at sinkersbeverages.com. That's the email address. In crowd, INCROWD at sinkersbeverages.com. Email an RSVP for the number of tickets you want for Saturday night. You're going to get a private Q&A. Panel of reporters, including Paul and Nick Suss and myself, to answer all your questions off the record. We'll tell some stories and have a little fun. All-you-can-eat barbecue, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, right there off Bradley Parkway. It's about 10 minutes north of Nissan Stadium. Super easy to get to, all the interstates, whether it's 40 or 65 or 24. You're going to get a 4-flight bourbon tasting of high-end bourbons. You're going to have a gift bag that you get to take with you with lots of cool gifts from Shotgun Willie's and the Titans and Sinkers Beverages as well. So going to have a lot of fun. Come on out, $75. Every penny goes to charity. In crowd at sinkersbeverages.com. Thursday night sold out. Thank you all for doing that. It's going to be great as well. Okay, so I want final predictions here, and I've kind of gone on this journey where I was like, I kind of landed on Jeremiah Love pretty early coming out of the combine, and I think I was kind of listening to Mike Morganzi talk and trying to just parse out some psychological evaluation of his tone of voice and his eye contact, and did his pulse go up a little bit when he mentioned Sonny Styles? Like, you're just trying to kind of see through the smoke. Sonny Styles seems like a player he really personally likes. May not be the right person to draft at number 4. But I think what's really, really interesting on this is I think David Bailey is going to be there. And it's not, I think he falls to him. And
tell me how he gets
if
there.
David Bailey falls to him, I don't think they're passing on David Bailey. So let me work my way down there. I think they have to have 4 names on their list. That's all they have to have, because I think they'd like to trade down, but Mendoza doesn't count. He's 1. I think it is Arvell Reese 1, David Bailey 2, and Jeremiah Love 3. And I don't think they have to rank players beyond that for the 4th pick, obviously. And if they trade back, then they have their list ready to go. I for some reason, I don't know if what Arizona's talking about at 3 is for real, But I think the Jeremiah Love possibility at 3 is very real, and it may not be to Arizona. It may be to somebody else. There's a chance that somebody goes crazy and wants a quarterback. I don't think that happens either. But for some reason, I think that David Bailey has enough questions that Arizona doesn't hitch its entire wagon and its new staff to David Bailey for some reason. And I think Arvell Reese is off the board at 2. I think it is between Bailey and Love, and they have a very clear order of Bailey above Love, if that makes sense. And for some reason, I think David Bailey falls to them. A mock today I saw from ESPN, I think Miller maybe, or I can't remember who, had Moanoa going at 3, which also seems crazy to me because he has the herniated disc problem potentially. But I don't know. What do you make of Bailey falling to them at 4 and their decision then between Bailey and or Love at that spot?
Oh, I think if Bailey's there, to take Bailey. I'm not as convinced that Bailey will be there. And I think they may wind up in what I would consider an unfortunate situation where Bailey and Reese are gone. And then they're choosing kind of between Love and Styles. I mean, they get a great player either way. They're just not getting positional value either way. And I think it was Peter Schrager who tweeted something out early this week upon talking to a GM who told him positional value is out the window in this draft. And we've spent, a couple months talking about the meaning of positional value. And I think, positional value may be out the window here. I mean,
I agree.
They may be choosing between 2 bad positional value picks, both of whom could help them a great deal. But I think if that's the case, and if Reese and Bailey are both gone, then I think Jeremiah Love is the pick. And I think he'll be a great player for them. And I don't think anybody's going to be thinking about, they drafted him at 4 or any of that.
That's right.
Maybe until, that 5th-year option comes around and you start to see the money or negotiate for a second contract or any of that. So we will have debated that for a long, long time, and it won't be a very important thing really in actuality. So I think Bailey's going to be gone, and I think it's going to be Love. But Bailey,
I would agree with you.
Bailey would be my choice.
Ed Henry says, I think it's Love or Styles if Bailey goes 2. I assume you then mean that Reese goes 3. I think the Titans would take Arvell Reese in 2 seconds if he was available. So I don't think they would pass on him. This is an interesting one from Sammy. If you had to put odds on it, what are the odds they stick and pick versus trade out? I think it's like 70-30. Take a player at 4. And if somebody offers them anything at all, then I think they're trading out. Unless Reese or Bailey are available.
I think it's like 90-10.
Yeah.
That they stay. Now, here's my other gut feeling / prediction is, and I'm kind of piggybacking it on the Love thing, but I think particularly if they're taking Love at 4, that receiver really might get squished out of this thing. Because if you're taking Love at 4 with the size of the need on the offensive line, with the desire still to get an additional pass rusher, unless there's somebody you really love at receiver in the 2nd round who somehow slips through, I know they don't want to be need dictated, but I think those other 2 positions are going to press you. They're going to be good options in the 2nd and the 3rd. And if you're just getting down to wide receiver in the 4th, you're going to get guys who are comparable to Io Manor and DK, and it's not worth it. And you need a guy who's a legitimate candidate to be a 1. And I don't think you're finding a legitimate candidate to be a 1 in the 4th. And I think it gets backburnered and goes back to the head of the list for 2027 and goes unaddressed, or you're taking a bit player traits guy later who's only going to add to your depth and is not going to be a big difference maker this season.
I love what you're doing there, because I think the 2 or 3 things I wanted to mention today on the show from like a prediction standpoint were, for some reason, I think Bailey falls to him. there's a lot of talk with these experts that are saying, these analysts, these national guys that are dropping all their intel, that there's a lot of people that think there's going to be a lot of chaos and a lot of moves and a lot of trades. Some don't. Some think it's going to be real boring. We had 9 trades in 2022 in the first round. We had 7 trades in 23, only 5 in 24, and only 5 last year. So there's a lot of we don't really know which way it's going to go. I could see Mendoza being the most, and honestly, the list is Greenhouse says it's Reese, Bailey, Love, Styles. That's the list. I actually think it's Reese, Bailey, Love, Mendoza. Mendoza is your 4th pick, because then you can trade the 4th pick if for some reason this whole thing has been a smokescreen and he falls to you, which is not going to happen, of course. But you got to rank 4. Mendoza has to be in there. But I agree with the order. I think it's Reese, Bailey, Love in that order, and you don't need to grade anybody else for the 4th pick. You might need to if you're trading back to 7 or 8 or 9 or 12 or 13. I think they're taking an offensive lineman at 35. I think that's an offensive lineman at 35. It could be a Blake Miller, who's a tackle who falls out of the first round, who's too good to pass. It could be one of the best available guards, which could be the best center in the draft. It could be the 2nd best guard in the draft. Emmanuel Pregnon could be there. Sam Hecht is probably going to be there. It could be any number of players. Chase Basantis could be there from A&M. I think one of the best available players at 35 will be an offensive lineman. I think there's a chance that Bailey falls, that they're going to take an offensive lineman. I think corner's the one that gets squeezed, because I think the other prediction I want to make is I think they're taking a safety higher than we think. The class is so good at that position, and a good versatile safety like even a Jaden Kennedy, who's a later round pick out of Oregon, can play in that nickel. And if you're playing Taylor and Flott on the outside, I think the safety class is too good. There's too much talent there. I don't know what Amani Hooker's long term. I know they just signed the contract, but like 2 years, you got to plan for 2 years from now. And if you could get a safety at 101 or even at 66, you could put that guy out on the field right away in all different types of packages. So I think they're taking an offensive lineman at 35. I think there's a chance Bailey falls to him at 4, and I think they're going safety much earlier than people think. But I think receiver, what you circle is 66. I think you circle pick 66 for safety, or for receiver. And if one of your players that you really like there, that's where I think you can go after them. But if you're not, then you got to wait till later. You got to wait till take a depth piece in the 7th round or something like that.
On your safety, I don't disagree with that at all. I think I won't be surprised if they come out with multiple offensive linemen and multiple DBs. I think there could be a nickel corner and a nickel safety. The nickel corner maybe being an outright nickel corner, the nickel safety being a third safety who's going to start out at nickel and could be Amani Hooker's replacement that would have them again looking for a nickel safety later. But Robert Saleh made it clear the third safety is the nickel safety, the big nickel, and that they will have a outright nickel corner, and it's not going to be Alante Taylor. So you need competition for Marcus Harris, and third safety right now is Tony Adams. I don't think Harris or Adams can not have competition, and so I wouldn't be surprised now. I'm using up a lot of their picks on a lot of spots, but 2 offensive linemen, 2 defensive backs, which is another reason I might squeeze. I could see wide receiver getting squeezed.
I think that nickel corner, that second offensive lineman, are after 144. Like that, those are in the 180s, 190s, 225 range. If you're going to get a tight end, that's where that range is. If you're going to get a running back, that's where that range is too. I think if you get a safety that falls to you that can cover, and you can use Winston more in the box a little bit, then maybe that's where, that big nickel, maybe that's where that third safety can see the field. Maybe it's, you don't necessarily, you got to find matching skill sets versus just this guy plays this position, right?
He said he doesn't expect to use Winston, that Winston's a deep safety.
Yeah.
Safety. That's the other thing. Like, I think, and I know they have to leave themselves open to what's on the board, but I think running back and tight end become like frivolous.
Yeah, I agree. Someone, Coach B says, someone's going to get Ruben Bain at a bargain price, and it's unbelievable to me. If he goes number 9, that's not a bargain price. That's where he is ranked. That's where he is ranked by almost every expert. That's where he's ranked by the consensus. If you read about, his size at that position on the edge is a complete outlier statistically. He has the shortest arms in the history of that position in the first round. So it's not crazy to say, oh, he's, some people are worried about where he's going to play and do they slide him inside and what happens when a 6'6", 330-pound offensive tackle gets his hands on him. Like, is that going to just stop him dead in his tracks? And if that's the case, then there's a little bit of concern there. And he falls to 8 or 9 or 10, and that's not even falling. That's just where he's graded. So I see what you're saying about that. I think he's a very good player, but I'm not sure about that. Daniel
another thing Blake Benningfield talked about when he was on with me 2 weeks ago, said, or this might have been Herndon last week. Forgive me for not remembering which. Not good change of direction once he gets in the backfield. So he'll have a guy in his sights, but not be able to finish him because he can't stop and go. Now, I would think, the Titans to a degree, and I think we're taking Bain out of the running at 4, and that's gradually happened. But, if you've got a swarming defensive front where if Bain's got a quarterback, changing direction, you hope there's another guy there to clean up. That's great. But you would like the guy to be able to, if I've got him, going this way and he's got a change going that way, that I could stop and chase and finish. Yeah. And Bain is not necessarily that guy, which is something that, in a normal draft might make him 15th instead of 8th.
That's right. And I think he's frankly graded more as like 12 and 13 than he is 6 or 7 or 8. So Daniel Caribbean says, I'd love to trade back with the Saints for 8 and 42. I think it's 8 and 40 maybe. But either way, I like that trade back as well. Move back to 3, pick whatever receiver you want. Maybe you still get Bain, or you and then you get an extra pick in there somewhere. You can add an offensive lineman. You could add a nickel back. You could add a receiver there. Here's a question from Ed. I like this one. Do you think that they would be comfortable trading out of the top 10?
I think 10 may be the magic number there, and they have to love somebody, who's going to be in that range. Just heard Braden, point to the report about the Bengals having what, 7 that they felt are good. The Titans have 10 that they feel are the top of this first round, because if they have 9, be less comfortable about going to 10.
Here's how I would look at that. I think there are 5 on the top tier. Love, Styles, the 2 non-position premium positions. You got Reese and Bailey, the 2 pass rushers, and the quarterback Mendoza. I think those 5 are there. But I think the next tier is not quite blue chip, but is very, very good. And that is Caleb Downs. Very, very good. I think the 3 receivers are on that tier, Lemon Tate and Tyson. I think they're on that list. I think Ruben Bain is on that list. So if I can get, that's 10 right there. That doesn't include any of the corners. I think you could make the case for a corner to be on that top tier. Which one is tough? Is that McCoy? Is that Delane? It's tough to know if they're on that tier.
Conceivably both for somebody.
Probably. The question is Francis Moano or Monroe Freeling on that list? Is Vega Iona, the guard from Penn State, on that list? Like, it's, how deep does that next group go is where I would be asking. And I do think it gets to about 11, 12, or 13. And if you're including offensive linemen, which is a giant need for this team, then you can make the case for 12 or 13, if you're trading back to that slot. Because you could still get some of the people you want.
Can you imagine if they traded to 12 and took Ione?
How about 11? The same pick they picked Kuharsky.
And so that would be 2 guards in 5 years?
4, right? 4 years.
2 guards in 4 years.
In the top 15. Yeah. But what if they have the best rushing attack in the NFL this year, PK?
Well, that wouldn't have Jeremiah Love behind it. So I mean, they're not. He would come in and help Pollard get through, but he wouldn't help Pollard turn a 20 into a 40. Yeah, which is where they're most lacking.
That's right. I think this is the argument for Jeremiah Love, which is he is a game-changing, field-flipping difference maker the second he touches the field. And I think a lot of you are doing this. You've already said this, Paul, but that is that while it is not a receiver, it is a playmaker on offense. And that playmaker pushes the need at receiver down a little bit. And I agree with that. Joe says, I'm okay with passing on receiver if we draft Love. So I think that's the right way to look at this. If you are, quote-unquote, stuck with Love at 4, You are adding a dynamic weapon to the offense. You don't need to prioritize another dynamic weapon to the offense. Is how we're looking at it. At least in this draft.
Well, I understand that it's largely circumstantial, but they need a number one wide receiver badly.
No argument there. I belong Chris Bell personally. I'm not sure what that means. I believe in. I want Chris Bell. Believe in. There we go.
I like Chris Bell.
I like Chris Bell a lot at 35.
I don't like the with him and with Connor Lew. I just think it's hard. Like you presume guys are going to get hurt, but when you give away the first half maybe of their season, and they're probably not going to be themselves through their entire first season, you're picking injury. Now they're going to be lower because they're hurt, so you're getting a trade-off there. But to a degree, you're giving away a piece of their first season. I want the full 4 seasons. Now, if they come here and they damage their knee, which is going to happen to one of these guys that they pick, that's different.
A couple other. I tend to agree with your basic point. Good. Sammy says, "Who do you think raises the floor more, Love or Styles?" And I actually think it's about the same. I think it's too similar. It's the two positions that go against each other. It is the two positions that you can normally get and replace easy, but these are the two best prospects probably in the draft. So I think it's actually similar, but maybe the floor is higher with a lockdown, super dynamic linebacker off the ball. Maybe that's a more impactful player than Love. I don't know.
I think I'm going to take the running back. It's of the two less positional value. It's more positional value.
I think Love's provides more upside. I think Styles raises the floor is probably how I would.
And also there's a question there. I mean, they're not drafting with it in mind, but yeah, they could use somebody else to go on billboards and be the face of the franchise and all of that. And that's a side benefit to it.
To running back over linebacker. Yeah. No,
to this running back.
No question. Very polished young man, by the way. Greenhouse says we might be punting on wide receiver until 2027. I think Borgonzi is fine with Wandell, Ridley, DK, and Io for now. I do kind of feel that way. I kind of agree with that. I think they want to add a depth receiver maybe if he falls to them, but I don't think they're prioritizing the position to go out and get him high. That's why if you trade down 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you take a really good receiver that could end up being a star, and you're adding value somewhere else. Like that's obviously the point. So any chance there was somebody asking about here, Space City Titan says, are y'all buying the Love to Arizona, Jeremiah Love to Arizona at 3 hype? No way that's money. Austin Fort's choice has to be getting pushed by ownership. I think it is more smoke screen than it is ownership actually and pushing the GM to take a player. Does that make sense?
Them trying to get somebody to come up and take him?
That's right. Last minute, dangle it and see what you can get. Drive up interest in this player.
Certainly aren't doing that.
No, they're not.
And so, I mean, I don't know. I guess it gets you a little attention, but I think anybody that likes Jeremiah Love knows they'd be wise to get in front of the Titans anyway. So he's just hyping it up.
And if you're the Titans, you're totally happy with that because if somebody trades up to 3 to get Love, you get Bailey, and you're fine with that. Which is why I kind of think that there's a chance that Bailey is their pick at 4. I think something crazy is going to happen and in the top 3, and the Titans are going to sit back and not do anything crazy and wait for the best player to fall to them. I think is what's going to happen with all of this. Let's see here. Who else do we have? Any chance this Arizona smoke on Simpson is trying to get the Jets to make a dumb move and take a quarterback at 2? I don't think so. I don't think Ty Simpson grades out like that. But
I think he's going in the 20s, whether it's early 20s with somebody being super aggressive, or it's late 20s with somebody getting in to get the 5th-year option in case he pans out. But we've seen that happen pretty regularly with the next quarterbacks. I like Keontae Scott a lot myself.
I do too. Ryan says Keontae Scott at 66. I don't think he makes it to 66, just like I don't think Traden Stukes is going to make it to 66. He might not even make it to 35. Brennan Thompson is too much of a one-trick pony for me, but Ted Hurst is an outside X or Y receiver. He's 6'3", 205, can actually run at 66. I like Ted Hurst a lot. Would you take Elijah Surratt at 66? He's on the board for sure.
I wouldn't.
He's on the board, but I don't like him relative to Antonio Williams out of Clemson or Hurst out of Georgia State. There's a couple other players I like over Surratt. He's the lesser of the 2 Indiana receivers for sure. Howie the Titan says teams reach for quarterbacks all the time. Completely agree.
Yeah, they reach for quarterbacks all the time. But if Ty Simpson was going top 5, there would be way more.
Now there was a lot of like late buzz about Michael Penix and Bo Nix going into that draft, and I think that was sort of unexpected, and then it happened. But I think we got news of that week. There was sort of some rumblings that there's some teams that like this stuff, like these two guys. So I don't know that's yet. Cam says Stukes at 66. He may not be available at 35, guys. Like he is. There are people that love this player who started as a corner, as a nickel, and is now kind of considered a safety. He absolutely could be off the board well before 66. I just want to sort of point that out. Jordan Pace says Bud Clark no matter what. This is a safety who played corner and is a very good corner in college and will be a safety, and that's really interesting to me. So I could be on board with Bud Clark at 66
he's in the mix
or 101.
Nickel.
66 or 101, Bud Clark, for sure. Genesis Smith, VJ Payne, or Bud Clark in the mid-rounds. Genesis Smith, talking to James Foster about this, he said he's the worst tackling secondary player he's ever seen, but it is an elite cover safeties. That's not a great combination. VJ Payne, he really likes, is a top 100 player, and Bud Clark, he really likes, is a top 100 player. Keelan Rutledge, awaken to the eternal. Keelan Rutledge and Denzel Boston at some point in the draft. That's a receiver, Boston out of Washington, Rutledge, the guard out of Georgia Tech. I think they're both a little bit too high on boards. I think Boston is interesting at 35 if he falls to you. Very interested there. Rutledge is very interesting to me if he falls to you at 66. Otherwise, I think they're both a little overvalued if you're going late first round for Boston and early second round for Rutledge, if that makes sense.
Couple Levis questions. Boston Diamond, what pick number do we get for Levis? Do the Titans get for Levis? They get like a pick swap, so they move up in the 6th.
So many comments here. I'm trying to get to them. What number pick do we get for Levis? So he was mentioned as names to watch that could be dealt during the draft, along with 2 other quarterbacks, Spencer Rattler and Anthony Richardson. Wouldn't you? I mean, Richardson probably would go for a higher price than Levis. But, man, the way people have scouted him, I could see Levis being the best of those 3 quarterbacks available. No market for Mac Jones at all, apparently, according to Schefter's reporting.
Really? Well, that suggests that people think that Mac Jones is entirely a product of Shanahan. He certainly has played the best out of anybody. But I also think San Francisco's put it out there. They're not interested in dealing.
Yeah.
But
drive up the price.
I think I don't know. I could wind up looking foolish. I don't think they get a straight up pick for Levis.
You're saying
giving something back.
Could you see a 4th for a 6th?
No.
That's just not that much value for Will Levis.
No.
Then you keep him. I think you have to keep him until somebody's desperate in camp. That's what I would do then. If that's all you're getting is you're moving up 1 round, a 5th for a 6th. No way. No way I'm trading him for that, at least in my opinion. Cam Salaway says Bryce Lance at 101. Daniel Caribbean says, Paul, do you think the Giants signing Tremaine Edmonds makes it less likely they take Styles, a similar type of player? It's not a Giants podcast, Daniel.
Maybe.
It's a Titans podcast. Greenhouse says Jeremiah Love is very marketable star for the brand new stadium. Ward plus Love on billboards. I think you are absolutely onto something there.
Yeah, I mean, that's not going to be the reason they draft him, but if they draft him, that's certainly a benefit of drafting him.
Here's the other one we have not mentioned. The A.J. Brown trade. We have not talked about that as news and notes. It's not really relevant to the Titans, but it is certainly intriguing that A.J. Brown is still causing problems in a locker room and that Mike Vrabel wants him, and that it's tied to this ridiculously long tail that Rossini and Vrabel seems to the gift that keeps on giving to the content space.
Well, somebody re-upped it today or last night, not Diana. So somebody's taken over that.
That's right.
That beat. I wonder what the value is for an AJ Brown trade now, X years later, after the Titans clearly didn't get enough for him. And didn't make enough of it.
The 16th overall pick?
16th or 19th.
16th overall or top 20 pick is pretty good value. I would argue. Jalen Waddle was a first round pick, but that was really, really late in the first round. AJ Brown is better. The key there is it's the reports are now that there's actually an agreement, kind of loosely, but that it's going to be after June 1st because they can take his $40 million cap hit and they can split it over 2 years, which makes a lot of sense. So the Eagles will trade him. They've also brought in some receivers in free agency, so it makes sense that they're kind of preparing to trade him. Just interesting that A.J. Brown is the career arc that A.J. Brown is on, where like every other day you're like, great trade, not good trade. No, Matt, better trade. I'm not sure about that trade. It just keeps going. What they did after trading him is totally separate, in my opinion. Like that's a separate evaluation, to be honest.
And that just as an aside, is the downfall of the Titans. Really, is not like it was dumb to trade A.J. Brown, but their answer to A.J. Brown was poor. I didn't have that big a problem with them not executing Jack Conklin's 5th-year option. Would have been a huge investment in Lewan plus Conklin, and Conklin had an injury history. It's how they went about replacing Jack Conklin that was the problem. If they effectively replaced Jack Conklin, if they effectively replaced A.J. Brown, they could have been fine. Now, thinking that they could effectively replace A.J. Brown after a couple decades of not finding receivers when you finally find one was hubris. And, I wrote after they lost that opening day to Arizona that one year that, ego was going to be the ultimate downfall of both John Robinson and Mike Vrabel, and I would argue that is what came to fruition.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Greenhouse calling it right now. Will Levis to the Steelers for a 6-rounder. There you go. T Manzana 27 says, has there been any word on who might fill in for Coach Mack this year? R.I.P. Thought Borgonzi's comments about Coach Mack very appropriate on Thursday. Any comments on that from you, PK?
Well, yeah. I mean, we've all had time to talk about Coach Mack. I think we might have led with it last week.
No, I just mean he asked about the replacement.
Yeah, no. I mean, I have my prime candidate for replacement. They can't get him. Jason McCourty would be the best guy they could get to replace Coach Mack. Jason McCourty lives in New Jersey. He's not going to uproot his family. He's not. I don't think quite full time for CBS. He does games here and there. He's not on a full time rotational crew. I don't think. I think he's pretty good, and I think he'd probably be better at a job like the Titans job. I think Keith Bullock could be pretty good at it. I don't think he'd want to do it full time either, where he's giving away every weekend. Yeah. And I think it's slim pickings after that.
Can you imagine?
I don't think Jeff Fisher's going to want to do that.
Well, no, just give yourself two. Bustin says Jeff Fisher would be my choice. Just think about what that would sound like. So you have Taylor Zarzer, who's a golf broadcaster, giving you the play-by-play of the game, and then Jeff Fisher's like, "Yeah, it was a really good pass rush off the edge there." Like it's just like he's just. I think Fisher's a very interesting storyteller, but he's not. You got to have some like over-the-top personality to be a color analyst on a team broadcast. Like you're on. It's not that you have to be a clown. That's not what I'm implying. But you have to be kind of over the top with stuff, and that's not really Fisher's vibe. So.
Yeah, and short interjections.
Yeah,
I think the most likely, and this is not with any research done at all, but I think the most likely person for that job, in a combination of has some experience and might want to do it, would be Brad Hopkins.
And he would be a personality. That's for sure. Having worked with him many times in the past, he would bring a lot of color, but he'd have to shorten the answers too. So
yeah, Lewan would never ever want to do it. I mean, he's got a much better gig. It's slim pickings, which is a sad statement about the Titans' historical players.
Yeah. It's going to be. It is. I mean, look. There's obviously a conversation about a human being in life, which is very complicated and very heavy and very serious. And then you kind of turn around and go, losing Mike Keith and Dave McGinnis from the radio broadcast in back-to-back years it's a really big blow. It's a huge hit to the Titans.
At a time when you had a second-year general manager and a first-year coach and staff and massive turnover in the locker room. This team's identity is in total flux. And to have lost those two guys in consecutive years, one to a job move and one to an unfortunate, untimely passing, is a really bad thing for this organization, unquestionably.
Delanie Walker's a pretty good option.
Delanie Walker would be terrific, but I think Delanie Walker is probably primarily in California. And again, if you're a guy of a certain stature who's made certain money and you're finally free to live your weekends, with your family or driving your cars like Delaney does, I mean, that would need to be a really lucrative position to decide to change your lifestyle there. And I just don't think it's that kind of job for these guys.
I tend to agree with you. All right. So lots of good.
Brett Kern would be good at it, but can Brett Kern tell you the intricacies of offensive and defensive line play in the moment?
Ben Jones is he's got a really fun personality. Is that what he wants to do, or does he want to be on a boat fishing and hunting somewhere?
I don't care for guys that had no interest for the media to be in the media.
Oh, okay. That's a personal thing?
That is a personal thing. Ben Jones was intentionally boring throughout his career. I don't think he should be rewarded with a career in media after it. And I don't think he's very interesting now either. Tries to be. But the biggest story that he told stabbed a whole bunch of people in the back and wasn't true.
Well, that's true. I think he's an interesting personality if he lets you see it.
Is he going to raise his voice?
No, I think Delaney Walker is the best name I've seen so far on this list. And McCourty's better than all of them, but that's impossible to get.
I gave a lot of thought to it to come up with McCourty.
Unless you do McCourty the same way you kind of did Zarzer, which is like, I'm going to let you do everything else. We'll let you do everything else, and if you come work here on Sundays. You know what I mean? Now, Zarzer's around the facility all the time and moved to Nashville, so that's – I don't know if that – I think that might be a different level. I don't think McCourty's doing any of that stuff. So could he fly in on Fridays and prep for 2 days and do the broadcast? I think he would be great at it. But is that what he wants to do versus – isn't he doing like the 7th rated CBS game on TV or something like that?
Yeah, I think he's like the extra crew on CBS and doesn't always have a game. So it's not even full-time at that.
Right.
Plus he's got, I think, relatively young kids.
Okay.
That he's raising in New Jersey.
That's a factor.
Not super young, but
I put in the comment section, by the way, on YouTube, not on the podcast, but I can
Hasselbeck. Here a couple more names popping to me from a friend.
Okay.
Matt Hasselbeck, who could come live with Tim. Logan Ryan, who
you want to live with your brothers? I don't want to live with my brother.
who could Logan Ryan, who does some CBS. He's built this phenomenal place. I don't know if it's here or if it's in Tampa. Matt Castle has some NBC college experience. And Kevin Carter does a lot of CBS college stuff.
I've worked with Kevin Carter a little bit, I think.
Yeah, you would have seen him more than I would have seen him.
I think I did.
But those guys would all be pretty polished, I think.
Yeah,
Logan Ryan, particularly interesting to me.
I like the Logan Ryan call. I just think he's a good personality. Like he is a generally, because what made Coach Mack great at this was sort of like this
relatable dude.
Yeah, Coach Mack was so relatable and so down to earth for being a guy that was in the NFL for 30 years. So willing to share all of that and just be a regular person. And I do think Logan Ryan has a lot of that. I think there's a lot of elements to like, hey, I'm just a guy in the community. You know, I think there's some of that. So
I'll say this: I don't know what Coach Mack made. I don't. But I think if you're getting one of these former players, the rate goes up, and I think they need to pay it. I think they need to invest in it as a really valuable
I agree.
Thing. Now Wycheck had the double deal, with the radio station and with that. I don't know that there's room for that. I don't know what a guy would want, but if they're going to get any of those guys that we mentioned, they're going to have to shell out for it.
All right. So just wanted to point that out. So I put it in the comment section on YouTube, and it is the link. Somebody asked earlier about can you donate to the charity, which is the Our Kids Foundation, ourkidscenter.com. If you do not, if you can't make it in, and it's ourkidscenter.com. If you check out the website, you can see all the work that they do. They help children in Middle Tennessee. Just make sure you let them know when you donate. Just make sure you're saying, hey, this is from 440. And that way we can kind of attach it to the donation from the draft party. So just say 440 Sports NFL Draft Party when you donate. But yes, please. In fact, I'd rather you donate there than even come to the draft party, to be honest. So please do so there. Any crazy final predictions? The schedule, Nick Suss and I are going to be live on Friday morning recapping the first round pick and anything else that might happen crazy that relates to the Titans in the division. Preview Friday and Saturday. We got the draft party Saturday night. We'll be live. Stillman will be live on 440 across the network on Thursday night from the draft party as well. I'll probably join him for a little bit of that. James Foster and I on the Hot Read podcast will have a draft intel last-minute scouting report episode on Wednesday morning. So we got lots of stuff. The Paul Kuharsky podcast, I assume, will be up all over the place across this week. So make sure you're checking out all the great shows across the network.
Well, if you leave me any room, like on my usual Friday slot.
I got to do Friday at 9 a.m. That's when we do.
Huh?
So if you're doing yours, that's immediately following the Nick Suss and Braden Gall show. All right. Anything crazy you think? Give you the space to make a final. Anything else that you haven't gotten off your chest? Are you good to go?
You already got it. I'm good to go. You already got me predicting more than I care to predict.
Okay. I think there's some drama and some chaos in round one. I think there's some trades. I don't know if it's going to be the Titans or not. I think they could trade back at 4 or 35. I'm just gonna predict everything. Like there could be a trade back. There might not be a trade back. All in the same sentence. Just do it all in the same sentence.
I don't think there's going to be a big trade up
from anybody.
From anybody.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a big trade up. I don't into that, like somebody that's way outside of that 7 or 8 into that 7 or 8, not necessarily
to 4.
into the top. Yeah.
I kind of agree with that too. You go from 13 to 7 or something like that, to get somebody. Look, this is how I would do it. It's Arvell Reese 1, it's David Bailey 2, it's Jeremiah Love 3, it's Francisco Mendoza 4. You're picking one of those 4 guys, and I think the Titans are hoping that Bailey falls to him. I think it could happen more so than I have thought at any point during this process. So we shall see. Lots of content coming. PaulKuharsky.com, Sinkers Beverages. See you guys Thursday night. We'll have Hot Read. We'll have other football show, the Paul Kuharsky podcast, Stillman and Company, everybody covering this stuff. It's going to be a big week. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then we'll see you guys Thursday and Saturday night, and then back here at the 440 Sports YouTube page. For everybody out there, thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. We will talk to you a lot this week. Next time, soon. Have a good one, everybody.
Yep.